Hi, and welcome to Geno's Picks, Hurricane Sandy edition. Obviously, we're here at my apartment. Couldn't get to the studio. I'm not driving in this madness, and Joe has enough to deal with his electric out. And I know we went 2-2 last week. 13-19 on the year. We're hovering just over 40%. Whee! But a lot of season left, and we're picking great in the podcast if you're following that. So let's get right to it. But first, you know what really grinds my gears? How polarized people have become over this marathon and the hurricane. I get it. They should have canceled it, and they did the right thing. But don't think the people that wanted to run it are evil or ignorant or just plain stupid. They just wanted to show, like we did after we ran the marathon after 9/11, we being them, not me, that in the face of adversity, all we can do is go on with life and fight back. And how many people were running this marathon, like my friend Bree, raising money for the victims, okay? And how many people traveled such a long way to do this marathon only to be turned away within the last 48 hours? That sucks. And let me tell you something else. At least the Kenyans who win the thing every year when they were cutting through Staten Island, they could have looked around and felt at home for once. Am I right? Right. If you're offended by that, then why don't you log on and donate money to Sandy or to victims in Kenya for that matter, or any fun. But for now, let's get to another tragedy, Geno's Picks. All right. My first pick, people. The Tennessee Titans are getting 3.5 from the Bears in Tennessee. I may have said it that way, but Vegas, if you think I'm not taking Chicago in this game, you can have my money. Because if you're telling me the Bears and their stud defense coming off a tough win last week against the Panthers, and what was really a wake-up call against Cam Newton, aren't ready to just beat down the Titans, then you can have my money. Well, and by the way, speaking of marathons, maybe Chris Johnson should be a marathon runner. Because just like them, he gets all his long runs out of the way one day a year. Yeah, and he had that game 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. Can't see him doing anything. I love Matt Hasselbeck, but what is he doing? Basically, they're locked on Jake Locker, and he's auditioning for another job next year. You don't think that gets frustrating? It really has to. Meanwhile, the Bears are playing well. They're healthy. I love the two-headed monster of Forte and Bush. Don't see him not running away with this, people. Take the Bears and lay the 3.5. There it is. People, my next pick, the New York Football Giants are giving 3, all favorites this week, I hate to tell you, to the Pittsburgh Steelers in New York, or, well, New Jersey. This game is being played tomorrow night in New Jersey, but as I tape this, you know where the Steelers are? They're back in Pittsburgh. Why? Because of this hurricane, they couldn't get a hotel room, and they decided it was best to just fly out game day. And do I think this affects the way they play? A little bit, but not as much as the fact that they have to go with Isaac Redman as running back because Dwyer and Mendy both have that dreaded D for doubtful near their name. In fact, on the other side of the ball, you have an even worse letter because the Giants' Ahmad Bradshaw has a Q next to his name, which Tom Coughlin knows it's just like being a fantasy owner. We all know that a football player getting a Q on the injury report is just like a football player getting a Q in Scrabble. Either way, you can't fucking use it. Please, the only time these guys use the letter Q is on their birth certificate. Relax, Daquan Bowers, Anquan Bolden, T-Quan Underwood, D-Quell Jackson. All right, relax, people. We're just having a little fun. The good news, though, is for the Giants fans, even if Bradshaw can't go because he's questionable, is that Andre Brown can. And I think this kid is a stud running back. I've said it before. And that just shows how the Giants have depth at running back. They have depth at receiver. They have Eli Manning. And I don't care what you say about their defense. They were playing prevent most of the game against the Cowboys last week, which we'll touch upon in a minute. Who do I like in this one, people? No shock. Take the Giants and lay the 3. Boop. All right, my next pick, people. We were just talking about it. The Falcons are giving 3.5 to the Cowboys in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome. Why do people let Tony Romo talk? Did he really come out and say, yeah, we really need to play like we're losing? Because that's when we really did a lot of things I like. Really? Did you just say that? Really, genius? Who doesn't like throwing passes against cornerbacks who line up so far from your receivers that they're closer to the end zone than they are to the line of scrimmage? Pedophiles are allowed to get closer to schools than the Giants' cornerbacks were to your receivers. So get over it, Tony Romo. And by the way, the first 30 minutes of the game, the Cowboys did a lot of things that the Giants liked, which is why they were up 23-0 and came out with a prevent in the second half. Okay? So Tony, just worry about once in your life, Romo, throwing more touchdowns than picks. Because this year, you've got 9 TDs and 13 interceptions. And saying you like playing when you're losing is as dumb as saying you like banging Lady Gaga. We get it. Either way, you enjoy facing a giant hole. Meanwhile, the Falcons are the most underrated, undefeated team in the NFL. And what's really frightening for the Cowboys is they're not sure if if Murray, Jones, or Des Bryant is going. And let me tell you, people, that is going to make Tony Romo more uncomfortable than most of you white people were during that joke about the letter Q in the last pick. People, take the Falcons, in case you didn't know what Alkins was, and lay the 3.5. Which brings me to my Double Your Money Monday Night Bet, or as I like to call it, what the hell? Just go with all you got left. Been doing well with it. Nailed it last week. The Saints are giving 3 to the Eagles in New Orleans. I'm not sure who's coming off a tougher loss this week. The Saints, after their drubbing at the hands of the Broncos, who suddenly look like a legitimate AFC team, although using the term legitimate in the AFC makes about as much sense as using the term legitimate at a Planned Parenthood meeting. But I think the Eagles are coming off a worse loss, right? Because they just lost to the Falcons, and it was the first time in the history of Andy Reid's coaching tenure in Philly that he has lost coming off a bye. I know last week I said he had 1 loss. It's the last time I listened to my cousin. And here's the 2 factors you have to consider. Against New Orleans, for New Orleans, Joe Vitt is back. I know he was back last week, but there's been a full week with him now. Little consistency. Meanwhile, the Eagles are so desperate that this week, to stir things up, Michael Vick called a players-only meeting. Please, they never work. A players-only meeting is a lot like a members-only jacket. Only the people in them think they're cool. And let me tell you, the second you step outside, you're going to get your ass kicked. People, take the Saints in this one. Lay the 3. Those are Geno's picks. We're back in the studio next week.